is the Limelight, and my name is Prince Apollo. Now, this week, civil society organizations, the Alliance for Campaign Financing, and Walezi wa Katiba Foundation filed a petition in the Constitutional Court challenging the constitutionality of positions for members of parliament and specifically women representatives for the 10 newly established cities, as well as seated divisions and municipalities in this country. Now, the petitioners contend that according to the Constitution, these newly established offices were created in error, and from their language, it is a breach of the provisions of the Constitution. And in their prayers, they seek that the holders of these offices should immediately vacate the offices and other processes proceed, looking at how the Constitution can be sanitized. We need to look at this matter critically, especially that these members of parliament have been in office for more than 3 years. Now, what does that mean? We ask Counsel Jude Byamukama, and Counsel Jude Byamukama is a constitutional lawyer. He also works with J. Byamukama and Company Advocates. Jude, you are live, and let me hear you speak to this particular issue directly. Tell us what you think, if at all it is true that these members of parliament have been holding office for more than these years and in breach of provisions of the Constitution. What does that sound to you?
Well, obviously, this is an interesting petition. But again, I need to point out that less than, I think in 2011, there was a question which was answered by the Constitutional Court regarding whether the Kampala city could have a woman member of parliament. The argument in that petition was that the position of a woman member of parliament is only for districts and not cities. The Constitutional Court answered that question in the negative and ruled that even a city such as Kampala was entitled to have a woman representative to parliament. The parties to that petition were, I think, Alex Ondoga and others, versus Electoral Commission, Honorable Nabila Nagai and Attorney General. Starting from that point, I cannot discuss the merits of this current petition, but I'm wondering how different it is, whether it is going to pose a new question from that which was answered by the Constitutional Court nearly 10 years ago. The one thing that maybe the viewers need to understand, the electorate or voters who elect a woman representative in a city are different from those who elect the woman representative for the district. So when we go to Jinja, Masaka, Mbale, Soroti, Gulu, and I think Fort Poto, you have, when you say a Mbale City Woman MP, the people who elect her are different from those who elect the Woman MP for Mbale district. And the people who elect the woman representative for Masaka City are also different from those who elect the Woman MP for Masaka the district. So it's important to have that distinction, and I think the principle in the Constitution is that there should be proportional representation. The seat for woman member of parliament was created as part of an affirmative action move to improve, to increase the number of female members of parliament. Because the nature of our society is that there are so many obstacles, cultural, economic, which make it difficult for many of our sisters, our mothers, our daughters to contest with men in these direct seats. They are just a handful who participate successfully in those main seats. So the idea of having the seats for woman member of parliament is to increase the female voice and make sure the female voices are heard within parliament. And that's the consideration, obviously, which the Constitutional Court pointed out in the Nabila Nagai case regarding the Kampala City MPC.
Jude.
And it is in that light that I think about that petition.
All right, Jude. Let's say, of course, we cannot go into the merits of the case, and we know what that means. But in case it turns out that indeed there was a breach of the provisions of the Constitution, does that also indicate that possibly that is one of the reasons why we need a comprehensive constitutional review or not?
Even without this particular petition, we need a constitutional review commission. There are so many areas touching our electoral politics, which are in need of, where we need some reforms.
Jude, you can always go on and submit, because I can see that you're interrupted by echo. You can ignore it and continue submitting. Don't mind about the echo.
Okay. So, the main challenge that we have is that the Constitution has had a number of amendments since 1995. The very first amendment had to do with the removal of term limits in the Constitution, and then a framework for a multi-party dispensation was created. But now, that was in 2005. Then in 2017, we had age limits being removed, the age limit on the term of office on the occupant for the office of president and district chairperson was removed. And so, in my view, there is a way in which those amendments created a fundamental change in the character of the Constitution. When you look we created a very powerful president who had powers to appoint so many people. And the only check on the office of the president, a president, no matter how powerful, would serve 2 terms of office and then give way for another president. That's how it works in Tanzania. That is how it works in Kenya. But for us in Uganda in 2005, we removed that fundamental limit. We removed the term limits, which were supposed to provide for a transition from one president to another by law. And as a result, we are in uncharted territory. Some people say we are in a situation of a life presidency. Others say we are heading for a situation that is increasingly resembling a monarchical succession. And therefore, we need to review our constitution to address these contradictions that arise from the amendments to the constitution. We need to decide, is this presidential system, is it working for us? Should we focus on a parliamentary system or not? We need to decide, for instance, was the removal of term limits, now that we have seen, this was 2005, 19 years later.
Jude, Councillor Jude, Councillor Jude, you addressed yourself to the, to the part of the petition that speaks about city women members or female members of parliament. But of course, in this petition, there are also other areas of contention, like the division members of parliament and the MPs representing municipalities, especially these which were recently established. Do you find anything, unconstitutional from your experience on that side of the municipalities and city divisions?
I think the key question again, it's about representation. Articles 60, I think between 63 and 65 of the Constitution, they govern this area of representation. The Electoral Commission has a duty to adjust boundaries of constituencies. And sometimes that may mean creating of a new constituency to take into account the population data. The manner in which these cities were created, I do not know whether the population data was taken into account, and so there could be a question for debate there and a question for the Constitutional Court to resolve, because it's very important that when a constituency is created, it must, the population must be taken into account. Article 60, I think 63 or 65, requires that the Electoral Commission should adjust boundaries of constituencies within 1 year of a population census being conducted. In the past, we had a census in 2002, we had a census in 2012 or 14, and the Electoral Commission has never bothered to adjust boundaries based on the population distribution in the country. And the Constitutional Court pronounced itself on that a few years ago and said that was unlawful, I think in 2022, and ruled that was unconstitutional, and ordered the Electoral Commission to take into account the results of the last population census and adjust boundaries to ensure that there is fair representation. To avoid the situations, for example, where you have Chira municipality having almost close to over 400,000 registered voters, and then you have several other constituencies which have just 10,000 voters. That will mean that the MP representing Chira municipality is representing 40 times the number of voters represented by others, meaning that MP maybe should be having 40 votes in parliament. The idea is to avoid that kind of situation. So again, broadly looking at complaints about creation of constituencies, it is important that that principle is taken into account. How many voters exist in that electoral area? If there are many, it probably may be easier for the Electoral Commission to make the case that we are trying to achieve proportional representation. The manner in which the constituencies are created, whether the correct lawful procedure was followed or not, is a question that can remain for debate. And that's probably one of the questions that would be interesting for the Constitutional Court to delve into that question and resolve it one way or another. But the broader issue is proportional representation is required by the Constitution. And proportional representation means each voter should be fairly represented in Parliament. You shouldn't have 400,000 voters represented by one MP when another group of 10,000 or 9,000 voters are also represented by one MP. The Constitution tries to outlaw that possibility, but the obligation to avoid that was placed on the Electoral Commission. And the Electoral Commission has miserably failed that responsibility for the past 20 years or so.
If you can tell us if indeed the Electoral Commission has failed to abide by the constitutional provisions relating to proportional representation, isn't that a question we can put before the Constitutional Court? And if I may ask you, in this particular petition, can that question arise?
Definitely ought to arise in this particular petition, because when there is a complaint about how constituencies were created and whether they were created lawfully or not, one of the aspects of that becomes the question about proportional representation. Were those constituencies created to achieve proportional representation or not? That is a question that has to be answered one way or another. There is that other procedure, obviously, like I've said, taking into account results of the population census. Was that done or not? That's a question that has to be answered. Then the rest of the nitty-gritties to do with having a resolution of Parliament on the recommendation of the Electoral Commission, they also are important questions when it comes to creating constituencies, because the Constitution and the Electoral Commission Act and Parliamentary Elections Act, Local Government Act, they create a very elaborate framework for creating of new electoral areas. And that framework must be followed. When it is not followed, then you could end up with an invalid constituency or a constituency that has been created with a serious default to the procedure, which could render that constituency, the gazettement of that constituency void. So it's a question that obviously would require us to interrogate the procedure that was used by Electoral Commission and Parliament to gazette and demarcate the new constituencies, which are in terms of divisions within the cities.
Constitutional lawyer working with the J. Byamukama and Company Advocates. Thank you so much for your time and an insightful discussion you have, of course, shared with us. Well, we wait for what will come out of the Constitutional Court, and petition has been filed, and we can only wait and see how it works out, whether the members of Parliament will be kicked out of the House or they will retain or keep their constituencies. My name is Prince Apollo. Let's catch up again next Friday. Coming up is Emisinji with Pastor Aloysius Bujingo. Don't dare go away. God bless you. God bless Uganda.